Hello, second grade. All right, so today for religion, we're going to combine chapter 24, lesson 2 and 3. And then tomorrow we'll do lesson 4. So lesson 2 and 3 are kind of, they go together because they're all about, they talk about Jesus and what happened after Jesus rose from the dead. So I'm going to read to you two of the following paragraphs. So it says here, very surprised and a little afraid, the woman ran off. The disciples did not believe them, even though Jesus used to tell them that he would die and rise again. But soon different friends of Jesus saw him. Mary Magdalene and the other woman saw him first. A few days later, the disciples were together in one room. The door was locked. All at once, Jesus was there with them. "Peace be with you," he said. Jesus talked and ate with them so they could see that he was not a ghost, but really alive. How happy the disciples were. Jesus was risen from the dead. Peace be with you. The disciples no longer felt any fear or sadness when Jesus was with them. We too will have peace when we let Jesus come into our lives. So remember yesterday you learned that Mary Magdalene and Mary both went to the tomb to apply some oils or ointments on Jesus' body to take care of him. And once they got to the tomb where Jesus' body was laid, they noticed that the stone was rolled away and Jesus' body wasn't there. Instead, they saw an angel who told Mary Magdalene and Mary to go and tell the disciples that Jesus has risen from the dead. And that's what we celebrate on Easter Day. We celebrate that Jesus was risen and he is now alive again. So these two paragraphs here are about when it talks about how Mary Magdalene and Mary, they were very surprised and somewhat afraid. And so they ran off and they went and told the disciples that Jesus has risen and that he is alive, but the disciples didn't believe them. So, but Mary Magdalene and the other woman were the first ones to see him. And so a few days later, after Mary Magdalene and Mary told the disciples that Jesus was truly alive and that his body was nowhere to be found in the tomb, the disciples were gathered in one of the rooms and the doors were locked so no one could get in. But suddenly they saw Jesus and Jesus said, "Peace be with you." And he shared a meal with them. And the disciples finally began to believe in him. And so there's a couple of things that you should know, and that Jesus did warn the disciples and did keep telling them that he would die on the cross for our sins, and that later he would rise from the dead, rise again, and be alive. And I don't think the disciples believed Jesus at that time. They definitely probably forgot later on after he died. But once they saw Jesus and once they saw the wounds on his hands, they started to believe, and they realized that this was truly Jesus Christ that was sharing another meal with them. And so they began to let Jesus come into their lives. And so the catechism question is, after his death, what did Jesus Christ do? So the catechism says, on the third day after his death, Jesus rose from the dead, took up his body, and won for us the life of grace. So I'm going to say it one more time. After his death, what did Jesus Christ do? On the third day after his death, Jesus rose from the dead, took up his body, and won for us the life of grace. So that's the Catechism question 52 that you will have to know. So that's lesson 2 and 3. So that's lesson 2 and 3. If you have any questions or you want to know more, please let me know and I will be happy to explain what we just learned to you more in detail over email, Zoom, or on Google Classroom. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.